Did Hannah get on?
Good morning, ladies, and welcome to Torah with the Takeaway. This week's Parsha is Parshas Vaera. This is one of the, starting from Shmos, we're talking about the exile and redemption of the Jewish people. Typically, there is no way to escape the topic of Emunah from these week's Parshios. Okay, last week there's some other things we could get into, Moshe Rabbeinu and things like that, but these next three for sure are talking about Emunah, and we're going to come up with some amazing life-changing ideas in that topic. But first, I have to ask my questions today. Since it's Pesach related, I'm going to ask 5 questions for the Coastal Elio. So we will have a redemption, Bekar of Mamish. The Makos in this week's Parsha are discussed up to Barad. Barad's the last one. And the Parsha begins responding to Moshe Rabbeinu's complaint at the end of last week's Parsha. And we're going to be taking that up. That's going to be probably our primary topic, but it's going to lead us to some other places that we'd like to go. The end of last week's Parsha, Moshe Rabbeinu sees, he goes to Paro. Last week he was sent to Paro. We're going to go touch upon that last week. We're going to touch upon that today. And we're going to see after he goes to Paro and he tries to get Paro to let the people go, and there's lions that are accompanying him, like the Paro's palace was blocked by lions. And yet Moshe and Aaron were able to, he took his staff, he like freed the lions. They were walking alongside him, and Aaron goes to Paro, huge miracle. And what does Paro do after this first approach? I'm going to make it harder on them. I'm going to make them make straw to make the bricks. It's not enough. They should make bricks and build for me. I want them to have even harder work. I don't want them to have time to think. So Moshe Rabbeinu, when he sees that Paro responds in such a manner, he thought maybe he did something wrong. He wasn't sure, but he's heartbroken. He goes to Ribbon Shalom at the end of last week's Parsha and says, Vayomer Hashem lama hare'osa la'am hazeh. Hashem, why did you do evil to this nation? V'lama zeh shilachtani. And why did you send me? Insinuating maybe I was to blame. I don't know. But why did you make bad? So, that's a complaint. You're waging a complaint. You did bad. Why did you do bad? He's saying it's bad. And from the time I went to Paro to talk in your name, hey, you made it worse for these people. And Hashem says, Ata Sirah, you're going to see what I'm going to do to Paro. And Rashi comments, we're just going to paraphrase the Rashi. You're going to see what I'm going to do to Paro, but you won't see the Jews enter Eretz Yisrael. You were not right in making this complaint. Now, such a beautiful, like Reb Levi Yitzchak Berditchever, your nation, look, they only steal, but they they keep all your mitzvahs. He was the prime Levi Yitzchak Berditchever. What would Moshe Rabbeinu do wrong? Okay, we can't understand. It's his level, not our level. But what did he do that was so bad that to bring this on that he had to receive this punishment? Second question, we find in this week's Parsha. Then he continues the dialogue in this week's Parsha, and he says, Ani Hashem, I showed myself, Vaera, El Avram, Vel Yitzchak, Vel Yaakov, Bekel Shakai. I revealed myself with the name of Kel Shakai. That's how I revealed myself to them. Ushmi Hashem lo nadati lahem. But I did not show myself with the name of Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, which usually denotes chesed and some other things, as we will explain. So it says, I showed myself to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So Rashi says something enigmatic. It says, Vaera, I will show myself. Rashi says, El Ha'avos, to the forefathers. What do you mean? It says Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Aren't they the forefathers? Like, why do we have to know that piece of information? Why are we told here? Rashi doesn't waste a word. Rashi is extremely terse. There are Meforshim that explain 3 words of Rashi. They can take a whole page because Rashi, every word is calculated. Why? This is like I know third graders learn Rashi, but this is something they would get, but we think like, come on, why do you have to waste your words on this? There's something deeper here to this Rashi. We're going to get into that. Third question. We find that when Moshe Rabbeinu, comes to Hashem with the complaints originally, last week's Parsha, there's a medrash that Rashi brings down saying that you're not like Avram Avinu. When Avram Avinu complained to me, he said he was his only son, and he didn't complain at all. He was supposed to bring his only son up on an altar. He didn't complain. And Yitzchak didn't complain, and you're complaining. Now, where's the comparison? Abraham, it was his own selfish, he didn't want to be selfish. He wasn't want to be selfish. When it came to himself, why Hashem are you doing this to me? Didn't utter a word. And yet Moshe Rabbeinu, when we find Moshe Rabbeinu is talking on behalf of others, he's coming with complaints on behalf of others. Why is it being compared to Avram and the Akedas Yitzchak? That doesn't seem like a fair comparison. You can't go to Eretz Yisrael. Unbelievable. Question 4. When Moshe Rabbeinu goes to the Jewish people in this week's Parsha, Hashem comforts him and tells them, no, I'm going to redeem you. He goes to them. It says, V'lo shamu el Moshe. They didn't listen to Moshe when he told them he's going to redeem them from Egypt. He says, Mikotzer ruach me'avadah kasha, because they could, their breath was short, like panting, like that kotzer ruach. They couldn't take deep breaths. That's the first thing any labor coach will tell you to do. If you're having too much pain, it's great to do if you're getting any procedure done by a doctor that's going to be painful, to take nice deep breaths. But they couldn't. They were so anxious and nervous and upset. They had kotzer ruach and avodah kasha. Rashi says, another question on Rashi. This is one of the kal v'chomers in the Chumash that let me just see. I'm just trying to find where the exact words are. Okay, it's not right in this pasuk. It's in another pasuk. But in any case, this says this is one of the kal v'chomers in the Chumash, that kal v'chomer means a fortiori argument. Like you're saying, let's say, if if I wasn't pretty at 25, how pretty am I going to be at 75? You know what I mean? That's like a kal v'chomer. Usually you're prettier at 25 than you are at 75. Usually, not always. Some people learn to wear makeup better, and they learn to, make the best of who they are. But in any case, when it's a kal v'chomer argument, that you're saying, if this didn't happen, then all the more so, why isn't this going to happen? Or let's say, if I can't, if Donald Trump can't pay his rent, how can I pay mine? Something like that. That would be a kal v'chomer. Here we find the kal v'chomer is very interesting. It says, you'd think, if you just look at this on a surface level, you'd say, if the Jewish people don't believe in me, then how is Paro going to believe in me? The Jewish people have emunah in Hashem, basically, in their bones. The Jewish people have great forefathers who promised them that they're eventually going to come out of Mitzrayim. How could Paro, who doesn't have emunah, believe in me? The problem is that a lot of people find with this kal v'chomer is that kotzer ruach, they are not listening. They are not contemplating because they're so upset. They're distraught. It seems to insinuate that the reason they're not accepting Moshe Rabbeinu's comfort is because they're anxious, they're nervous, they're everything. Then if that's the cause of it, is the fact that they're all nervous. Paro does not have any nerves. The guy is sitting there sipping his mint julep. I don't know what he's doing, whatever the equivalent was in Mitzrayim, under the palm tree, So if they're not listening, how is Paro going to listen to me? So that's, and then the last question, fifth, last but not least, we find in this week's Parsha another curious event. And that is, the curious event is when Moshe and Aaron are described in this week's Parsha, and also throughout many places in the Chumash, we find Moshe and Aaron always mentioned next to each other to show they were equally great. Moshe, Aaron, Aaron, Moshe. But here there's some interesting verses to analyze. It says, who Aaron v'Moshe, and in Perek Vav Pasuk Chavav, this is if Bina's listening. This is Aaron and Moshe, that Hashem said to them, take the Bnei Yisrael me'aretz Mitzrayim al tzivosam. It mentions Aaron's name first. Now, who is the person that said, take the Jewish people out of Mitzrayim to Paro? Moshe is the one that Hashem was told to take the Jewish people out of Mitzrayim, but Aaron is mentioned first in this verse. Then in Perek Zayin, Pasuk Chaf, again they're described, and it says, Vayasu chen Moshe va'Aaron. Kasher tziva Hashem vayaram b'mata vayachas hamayim. It talks about, then it says Moshe and Aaron, just like Hashem commanded them, he took his staff and he split the water in front of the eyes of Paro, and all the water turned to dam. Now, in that verse, it mentions Moshe's name first, but who was the one that actually took his staff and hit the water? It was Aaron. If you look at all the verses, that's always a phenomenal lesson. As an aside, we'll stick it in here. And that lesson, of course, is that we learn that when we make Kiddush on Friday night and we cover our challah, Moshe did not want to hit an inanimate object that benefited him. That's why we cover the challah when we make Kiddush, because we don't want to embarrass the challah. Now, in all of my years, and I'm only 22, I have never seen an embarrassed challah my entire life. But we cover it because we're supposed to feel, challah, you fill me up. Bread, you're the staff of life. You're the thing I make. We do all these rituals by challah, by bread, because bread is the only food. I read this, I forgot who says this. One of the Meforshim says this, maybe Rav Shimshon Pinkus. Bread is something that we never tire of. Is that interesting? That's why we have to lose some weight sometimes, because carbs, especially bread, like think about it. If you eat, let's say 5 plums, you can't, even if your plums are your favorite food of the earth, or even cheesecake, after chocolate, all the things that people want to eat, they're not going to eat them, ad ein sof, like a tremendous amount. But bread is something that's unlimited, because bread is something that is the staff of life. And it's something that, that it's meant to have. It's never something that loses its taste by us. That's interesting. But in this case, Moshe was told to hit the water. However, in all the verses, you check them out, Aaron hits the water, because Aaron is the one that didn't have this. He wasn't saved by the water like Moshe Rabbeinu. He doesn't have this appreciation for water like Aaron did. Aaron, did not benefit from the water like Moshe. So Aaron could hit the water and not Moshe. But in any case, both of these verses is very interesting. If you notice, both these verses, what I'm trying to stress is the name of the brother that was the least involved in that action was mentioned was mentioned first, rather. And the brother that was the most involved was mentioned second. And that's interesting, because usually in the Chumash, you're going to find somebody that's extremely involved. That person should be mentioned first. Moshe's the one, Aaron's the one that hit the water. It should say who Aaron v'Moshe. If you're going to talk about Moshe, who told the Jewish people, or Hashem told him to take them out of Mitzrayim, it should say who Moshe v'Aaron. It should say Moshe first and then Aaron. Aaron was involved, but albeit he was a minor player, and Moshe was the major player. So why is it in that order? So those are our questions, ladies. Let's take them up and get into some amazing lessons. Today's class is entitled Faith and Mission. Okay, so let's answer the last question first, as to why Moshe and Aaron are scrambled around like that. First, the major players mentioned second, the minor player mentioned first, and Moshe and Aaron keep mentioning together, like why, when the other one, that wasn't really even his job. So I saw this in a Sefer by Rabbi Einstadter Shlita, who does a lot of the Brisker Torah, and he mentions that there's two lessons we learned from their order being changed and their main mission being given, so to speak, to the other. First of all, in Hashem's eyes, it doesn't matter what you accomplish. It matters how hard you tried. Both of them had parts, and albeit the other one did not end up executing the part to the degree the other one did. However, in Hashem's eyes, it's as if you did it. If you had intention of doing it, it doesn't matter. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu was unique in the fact that the Shechina talked from his throat. The Shechina talked from the throat of Moshe Rabbeinu. Aaron didn't have that. That it was and he had aspaklaria hameira. He had a clear vision of Hashem, which no other prophet ever had. However, the Torah puts them equal. He makes them equal. And the Rambam says that every Jew in the world, every Jew can have the same portion as Moshe Rabbeinu. Rambam says that in Olam Haba. As long as you do your mission faithfully, you can be like a Moshe Rabbeinu. You don't have to be Moshe. You have to do your job. And when you do your job faithfully, you get the credit of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe was given those extra gifts. We needed someone like that to transmit the Torah to us and to teach us. But if you're not given those gifts, if you use what the gifts you do have to the best of your ability, you're equivalent to Moshe Rabbeinu, says the Rambam. So the idea is, that's the first thing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your gift, it doesn't matter what you accomplished. In Hashem's eyes, it's equal. And usually we think the fitness is what's important. Usually we think that Moshe was the one that's hard of speaking, couldn't speak easily. So Aaron did the speaking for him to Paro, but Moshe's name is mentioned first. It doesn't matter your fitness. You're only a vehicle of Hashem. Your ability means zero. In our days, there's such an opposite thing. It's all about what do you do and how can you do it and how well do you do it and your appearance and the externals, trappings. But really, we believe as Torah Jews that the main thing is how hard did you try? And Hashem makes the result. Like we talked last week's Parsha, we're talking about Betzalel, how Betzalel was a youngster who knew nothing of craftsmanship, and he was given the whole responsibility of the entire Mishkan to execute. So we each have a mission. Some people's missions are defined. Many people later discover their mission. That's what Rabbi Einsteiner said. But that is that we all have some type of mission. He brings down a Yerushalmi and Kedushin. Rabbi Tarfon had a mother who he exemplified Kibbut Av V'Aim, the way he treated his mother, exemplified the way he honored his mother. One time her shoelaces tore, and I guess in this case it was the type of shoe where it couldn't stay on her foot once the shoelace tore. So Rabbi Tarfon held his hand. Rabbi Tarfon was a contemporary, by the way, of Rabbi Akiva. He was a Tana. He was a sage of the Mishnah. He held his hands down to his mother to walk on his hands till she got to her bed. Later, many years later, when he was on his sick bed, his mother begged the Rabbanim, the Chachamim, the Chachmei HaMishnah. She begged them to please daven for him. She said, look at my son. Look at his great honor for his mother. It's a tremendous level. How can we lose him? Please daven, he should recover. And they answered her in a very enigmatic way. They said, even if he did this 1,000,000 times, he didn't achieve half of the honor deserving of a parent. Tell that to your kids. Anyways, the Beis Halevi says on this, Rabbi Einsteiner brings this down, that the mother's pleading Kibbut Av V'Aim, but the reason why the sages answered her this way is they didn't want him to die either. They wanted to say, look, he didn't fulfill half his mission. He still has to be here because he has a mission. As long as we have a mission in this world, we have a reason to live. And as soon as a person loses their mission, that's when life ends. So Rabbi Tarfon, the contemporary Rabbi Akiva, the Gadol Hador, they're trying to think that his mission shouldn't end yet to prolong his life. You know, I wanted to say here that somebody called me up after the class last time, and I wanted to say it here, but I'm going to mention it also next week for the people that missed the end of last week. And that is, somebody called me to know how do I know what my mission is? It's a common question. People are contemplating their mission. And the answer is, you don't have to know. What he says later, some people discover their mission. You look back, you see but you do know in a way. When Hashem gives you X, Y, Z children, you have this kind of difficult child, let's say, or this illness, God forbid, or this problem in your life, obviously that's your mission because God gave it to you on a silver platter that this is what you're supposed to overcome in your life. Now, people that don't, if there's such an animal of a person that does not have a mission, I would, if somebody says like, I just have it so easy and I have no difficulties in my life, then guess what? You have a bigger mission. Your mission is to help all those people that don't have it as easy as you. You have to think of ways to help them in some way, whatever your strength may be, whether it's a listening ear, whether it's a big pocketbook, or whether it's whatever. You could drive around for them. You could do things. Today, we have lost so many of our institutions that help people. We have the bigger cholim, like things are limited right now, but we have other avenues that have opened. There's so many people needing help in some ways. We can all think of ways. I have to mention here because I feel it's very important. Toronto community has lost a very special woman last week. A woman named Miss Faggy Kaplan. She rest in peace. That I happen to have many times at my Shabbos table, many yontifs I spent together. And this is a woman that could have really complained about her mission because, no children, no husband. Um, but one thing I saw about her, never a bad word, never heard a word, negative word about anything, not about her situation, not about her other people, always positive, always thinking of very considerate person, thinking of the other, not wanting to intrude, not wanting to bother, So this woman, she could say, what's my mission? I think we learned the world, the city, anyone that came into her area, learned about her kindness and her, how she never could think bad about another person. It's just, that shows a purity of soul, because the way you look at people is the way you are. K'mayim el panim, or like, there's other chazals talking about that, but the basic thing is the way you look at the world is usually, if you have a negative feeling about somebody, that's usually what you have to work on. That's Hashem made it like that. That usually your little weakness is what you have to work on. And she obviously had a very pure, holy soul that she never saw bad in anybody else. It was always a pleasure to be in her surroundings. Her neshama should have an aliyah. Now, so the mission we have is either the things you went through, or obviously make the best. Use your mission, use the time you have, and use it for what are you doing with your time? That's the biggest gift a person has. What are they doing with their time? Are they just wasting, frittering away their time? I know it's a very big challenge now because people are sitting at home with not much to do, and it talks about madregas. A person on a very high madrega, less time is wasted. They said Reb Chatzkel Levenstein, not 1 second of his life was wasted. Every limb of his body was just, Hashem, what do you want from me now? Now, we're not Reb Chatzkel. I would venture to say, I think so. Nobody, in our generation, not very few people at all. But everything he drank, everything he ate, every movement he made was l'shem shamayim. That's mission. It's instilling mission into anything you do. Now, when we talk about mission, our mission as Jews is given to us by our avos. Avos and toldos, we see that's a concept in halacha. Av means like that's the roots. The roots, where do you come from? The roots of the Jewish people were mission. And guess what? According to many sources, I saw this by, where did I see this? I saw this by Rav Bak's, Zechron Livracha, and I think I also saw this by Rav Shimshon Pincus. Yeah, that by the Avos, they had, I showed the Avos Shem Shakai, die, means when you say Shakai, that name of God, that means She, die. That everything, there's a limit. You see things in a more limited manner. Our forefathers had a world where they saw a world where a lot of their hopes and promises were not fulfilled in their lifetimes. Their challenges. Avram thought his whole child that he thought he waited so many years for children. Finally, he has a child to continue his dynasty. And here that child is going to be threatened. The child may not live. And everything he believed in was going counter to human sacrifice, and all the other things that he didn't believe in were all being done in his day. And he countered it, and it looked like it was all hopeless. They didn't have clarity in their day. There was no clarity. Yaakov Avinu said, "Ma'at b'roim hayu shnosai," that my life was short, and a lot of negative stuff went on in my life. Yaakov Avinu said his life was full of challenges, Lavan and Esav and Yosef, the whole saga with Yosef. Yaakov Avinu suffered very much. Yitzchak Avinu, all of them had children that were off the derech. They all had horrible circumstances, not easy situations, a lot of challenges. And yet they persevered in their emunah. That's our mission. Our mission is, that's why Rashi, when it says Vaera, I showed myself, the avos means that is your mission. Headline, as a Jew, is you are sometimes going to see darkness, and in that darkness, you've got to find the light. You've got to make the lemons out of the lemonade. You may not see the results of your actions in this world. You may not, you may not, and I think most people don't, but the person is supposed to instill whatever they can in their time and in their life, and from that, good things are supposed to come. And we're told in many places, says Rabak, Zechron Livracha, that the 10 Commandments And the 10 Makos came in the merit of the 10 tests of Avram Avinu. Now, did he know that these great things are going to come for the Jewish people in his merit? In fact, you did the Akedah. They had the big major test of Yitzchak. You know, Avram is being tested. Your son, I bring him up on the altar, like as if he's going to, you know, looks like he's about to die. And what happens? Who is standing there? Nobody. It's not major thing. You picture thousands of people witnessing this great event. Him and Yitzchak are alone in the desert. That's it, with some ram running around. That's it. And nothing. You don't see the results of your actions. It's all dark. It's all darkness. We're told sometimes that a person, like a lot of times a person has like a lo aleinu, like a death penalty on him. In the merit of Yitzchak Avinu, it's a shmira. The fact that Yitzchak Avinu was willing to give his life for the cause of Hashem is often a protection for future generations. They're called avos because they lead us in our direction and how we should lead our lives. You know. Now, here from Rav Koppelman Zatzal, who was the Rosh Yeshiva in Lucerne, Switzerland, brings down Medrash Rabbin Vayechi. And I happen to have that right here. And it says, Amar Rav Yitzchak, Hakol Bekivui. Rabbi Yitzchak says, you know what? Everything comes from hope. Everything that a person gains in this world, everything a person merits in this world is in the merit of his emunah. Yisurin Bekivui. If a person wants to get out of Yisurim or handle them properly, it depends on his degree of hope. Kedushas Hashem Bekivui. If you want to make a Kiddush Hashem, if you want to sanctify God's name to the degree that you have trust in God, that's the degree you're going to make a proper Kiddush Hashem. Zechus Avos Bekivui. If you want to have merit of your forefathers, it all depends on your power of hope. Ta'avaso Shel Olam Haba Bekivui. And even your desire for the world to come depends on the degree of hope that you have developed within yourself. Now, what does that mean? What does all this mean? So he explained that the Orach Chaim HaKadosh tells us that when we talk about that everything is through hope. By the way, I just want to show here that the Chayvus HaLevavos tells us in the Shar HaBitachon that bitachon and emunah are so essential that and today almost every Rav, Rosh Yeshiva, everything, Rebbe, they all say emunah is the test of our generation, especially preceding Mashiach. That the more emunah a person gets, the more he's going to put into every mitzvah because he feels this is it. I'm going to do more because I believe. The more you believe, the better you'll do the mitzvah. The more you believe, he says, the Chavos HaLevavos, the better you'll have it in this world because you see a bigger picture. Emunah is necessary for everything. Now, the Orach Chaim, he brings down, the Orach Chaim says, you know, this Kal V'chomer, he's not sure it's such a good Kal V'chomer. The Orach Chaim is the one that first questions the thing we asked in the beginning about the Kal V'chomer. That Moshe Rabbeinu said, if the Jewish people don't believe me with their difficulties, how is Paro without difficulty going to believe me? He says, no, we have to read it differently. The Kal V'chomer is a little bit different here. Everything depends on belief. So if the Jews don't believe in me and in my mission, how will Paro believe in me? How can I get someone else to believe in me? Nothing happens without bitachon. We have to believe that. Without bitachon, nothing occurs. Like in last week's Parsha, I saw this many places. Rav Simcha Zissel brings it down. I saw it once by Rav Chatzkel, brings this down. I saw Rav Scheinberg Zatzal brings this down. There's 3 episodes that occur in last week's Parsha. First, Hashem commands Moshe Rabbeinu, go to the Jewish people and tell them, I'm going to take you out of Mitzrayim. And then step 2, the nation believes in Moshe. And step 3 is that Moshe goes to Paro right after. The question is asked, and I'm going to modernize the question. He says, imagine, I'm modernizing this. Let's say somebody's lying on the street and it looks like they had some kind of, who knows what, God forbid, who knows, a heart attack, whatever. Are you going to go tell the person, don't worry, I'm going to call 911 for you. Don't worry, Alice Vetzine, good, it's going to be great. You just hang in there. I'll be doing it. I'll call. I just want to make sure your emotional state is good right now. That's the main thing. That's usually not what we expect. But this is what happened here. They're in Mitzrayim. You'd think the first thing you should do, go to Paro, get them out. Don't go to Bnei Israel. First, go to Paro. Do not stop. Do not pass go. Go to Paro. So we're told that Rav Simcha Zisel says this. He says, why is it in this order? Without Emunah of Bnei Yisrael, Moshe could not succeed in his mission. They had to say that they believed. Once they believed, he could do his mission. Everything is dependent on Emunah. We have a mission. We all have missions in life. And one underlying mission that every Jew has is, despite the darkness, we all have to employ Emunah. Why? Rav Scheinberg says Hashem doesn't want to do things, or Sivsei Chaim, I saw this there too. Hashem doesn't like to conduct himself in a miraculous fashion. He wants things to go naturally. So if you're believing that this is natural, that Hashem always does this, like Hanina ben Dosa believed that any miracle could happen. So he was always having miracles in his house. We're not on that level, but when we believe something's within the realm of possibility, then it can happen. Hashem doesn't want to happen as a miracle, because if the Sifsei Chaim explains, person will feel it's his merits. So therefore, Hashem always employs everything in the miraculous in order that a person should have more, it always tries to do things more non-miraculous. So a person should get more belief in Hashem. And belief is so important. Not only does everything start and end with Emunah, but the Maharal says, Yesh tzadikim v'shulchanam reik la'asid lavo mipnei shechaser lahem emunah. That there's some tzadikim, their tables are empty in the world to come because they're lacking Emunah. It's not, people think just be a good person, learn a lot of Torah, do a lot of mitzvahs. We have to make a relationship with Hashem. Victor Miller says, our relationship with Hashem should be tops, most important, especially if somebody's alone. They should know that the reason they're alone is in order that they make a relationship with Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu was alone for many years as a shepherd until he comes on the scene as the, okay, if you can ask me at the, okay, I didn't get your thing. I couldn't read it quick enough. But in any case, the what's it called? So the Emunah, to the degree that we have Emunah, that's necessary, not just for mitzvahs, but it's the purpose of Torah mitzvahs, says the Vilna Gaon and the Rambam, is in order to get closer to Hashem and to build our character. Whole purpose of the entire Torah and mitzvahs. Victor Miller said, Hashem should really be your best friend. And if you're married, don't tell your spouse because they'll feel insulted. They should feel like they're your best friend, but really Hashem should be your best friend. And that's what he felt. And that's what the Chavetz Chaim felt. We find those kind of people were on those levels. The Chidushei Agados, and another thing from the Maharal, he says, all rewards in this world and the next world are commensurate with the amount of bitachon that a person instills in them. Rav Scheinberg brings down a beautiful medrash in Shir HaShirim. It says, Domed dodi l'tzvi. My beloved is like a deer. Now, deers used to be my favorite animal many years ago. I thought they were so gentle looking and kind and everything. And until I encountered a deer and I saw that they don't even want to look. You go up to them, they're terrified of people. Utterly terrified of people. They hide from people. So too, Hashem plays hide and seek with us. He hides from us so many times because he wants us to have Emunah. The reason why things are dark, it's easy to have Emunah when everything's fine and everything's on your plate and everything's all the bills are paid and there's no threat of the world falling apart like it is right now. It's very easy to have Emunah, but that's not what Hashem wants. Hashem wants us to have Emunah when things are dark, because then you really exercise those Emunah muscles, like the Avos. That's the way we're supposed to be, like the Avos. They even say, there's a medrash that Nassim Wachvogel brings down, that when Mashiach comes, he's going to first show himself, and then he's going to disappear. We're not going to know what happened to him. And then he's going to show himself again and disappear. And I don't know what that means. I can venture my own, on my own Amaretz kind of shot here, because I'm not a great Rav, Makubal, or Tzaddik, whatever, but I can say that after the Holocaust, a lot of people felt that's it, Mashiach is here, or we're here, I mean, how worse can it get then? But then he hit himself. And now again, we're thinking about Mashiach much more than we did before. And we see that the world is not, we can't depend on this world. We see, oh, Ein od milvado, there's nothing but Hashem, that all the powers of the world, we trust the medical establishment to some degree before. Now we don't even know how much politics is mixed up with this, with establishment. We used to trust our governments much more, thinking that they're basically, even for their own pocketbook, they're out for the benefit of the people. And now we see that's not true. We hear in Eretz Yisrael, the governments do what they're doing to Haredim, what they're doing to the religious community. It's unfathomable, unbelievable what's going on. And the whole idea is for us to show how much we trust in Hashem during these difficult times. And we have to work on it. And it doesn't come easy. It doesn't come easy. It's something that has to be worked on. Nobody is born with Emunah. Some people are more chilled out than others, but chilled out does not mean bitachon, by the way. They're not synonymous. I'm going to give you an example. It says in the Shar Bitachon, Chavos Levavos. This is something I discovered once. Several people in my life helped me. This is my pshat, so take it at its value, but I feel it's the truth. He says in the Chavos Levavos that it's impossible to be free of worry without bitachon. So I used to think about, that really hit me, because I knew people that were chilled, and I said, okay, how does this jive with his statement that it's impossible? He says it emphatically. It's impossible to be free of worry without bitachon. So this is what I thought came up with. The people that I know in my life that are chilled either are escaping reality, like they were the youngest in the family and there was always somebody else to lean on who would take care of things. Usually there are two opposites, being conscientious and being chilled. Usually the people that are more nervous and worried, and I've read this in different sources, the worried people are the conscientious people. Because, they're trying to get something done and it's not done and I have a deadline and this and that, and they want it to happen. They're going to make it happen. Now, other people are more chilled. Also, of course, worry can happen from people going through traumatic events or from all kinds of terrible things. People can be worried, why that people are worried these days. But usually, often, the person to have to deal. Oh, good. Thank you very much, Hannah Deborah. So anyway, so for a person to have simultaneously being conscientious and not being worried, that's bitachon. To pay your debt, your dues. How are you paying your dues? By doing what you have to do, and davening as well, and realizing Hashem is going to bring your salvation. Of course, you have to be calm, but you have to do something. It's very easy to be chilled, And you see, like, kids are always saying, "Oh, Ma, why are you so nervous?" They're 16 years old, for God's sakes. The worst thing they have to worry about is the test tomorrow. You know what I mean? That they, they tell their parents, "You're so nervous, you're so worried," Anyway, so if in any case, people are worried about different things, but bitachon means to be free of worry because you see, I am not in control. Hashem is helping me. He's with me. I'm not alone doing this. Hashem is helping me doing this, and it's going to happen. But this is being conscientious and not worrying, and that's quite a feat to perform. In fact, they usually seem opposite. Now for Rivka, we're going to bring down a word from Rav Chaim Mintz Shlita. Rav Chaim Mintz says that people can undergo suffering much easier when we know that this world is just an anteroom. It's just an entranceway to the world to come. And if people are willing to suffer, like, in low-class hotels or whatever, the bed bugs, they'll sleep on the floor that night if they know they're going to catch their lottery findings tomorrow morning. Or if, something big is about to happen, they're willing to undergo any kind of thing. So too, emunah and bitachon, the more we believe this is a temporary world, and this world is really, like Rebbetzin Steinman used to always say, a narisha veltala. This is a foolish world. Or I think Rebbetzin Perel Cutler used to also call this like a kleina veltala, a little world. They kept telling this to themselves. Don't think you're born like this. You have to remind yourself, because the world can look very ominous sometimes. All things are coming at you from all sides, and we're supposed to still focus on the fact that really Hashem is in control. And it says, "Eina Kadosh Baruch Hu mevi pur'anius ala olam ela b'shvil Yisrael." Whenever Hashem does anything to the world, earthquakes in Mongolia, is to remind the Jewish people. Remember, perhaps when people are all scared of China today, I don't like the view and I have to change it. Yes, I want to look more close up. All the things going in the world today, that all the challenges we're going through, Mongolia is so close to China. It was even part of China. And if I'm not mistaken, at one point they wanted to put the Jews in Mongolia. I think the Chinese government had in mind to make concentration camps for the Jews in China, and it never happened because of the Amshinover Rebbe spoke to them and some other emissaries of the Mir Yeshiva. It was called the Fugu Plan. If you ever read that book that was going on, the Japanese and the Chinese had these plans for the Jews. Interesting, in Mongolia, of all places, maybe to tell us not to trust the power of China. Everything's under Hashem's hands, and Hashem can make them fall to their knees in seconds. They have no power. We can't be afraid of them. So we've learned two things so far: the sense of mission that a person has to have. The main thing is to try. And the main thing that we need in our mission, our personal mission, is to employ emunah. And it gets us this world. It gets us the next world. It helps us cope with Yisurim. It helps us cope with all kinds of things. Every single mitzvah, the higher the degree of emunah, the greater the mitzvah will be when we perform it. And it doesn't come from nothing. There's this amazing Bitachon hotline. There is the Bitachon weekly. You can print out all kinds of things. There's all kinds of emunah Bitachon things all over the place. And it's something we have to listen to on a daily basis. We have to work on ourselves. It doesn't just come. There's all kinds of stories of great Gedolim that I believe was one of the Briskarovs, that he lost his entire, he got some type of nadan, he got some type of dowry when he got married, and it was all lost. Somehow something happened, the whole thing fell apart. He had no money to live on. He locked himself in a room for hours and learned the Shar HaBitachon from the Chovos HaLevavos, and then he came out and he could handle it. So, this is what we're supposed to work on. A lot of people, contrary to this, think we're in the world now, you're supposed to work on, listen to the news, because you have to know what's happening. You have to know what's going on. All the news does is scare us. It's making us crazy. And the more we listen to it, we can't function. We still have to think we have a mission. Our mission is going to be lessened. Our mission is watered down the more we get into all this, because it gets us frightened and it's trying to throw us off from what we're really here in the world to do. A major way to have emunah is by thought. The Sforno brings down in this week's Parsha, Perek Vav, Pasuk Vav till Tes, he says, usually, this is brought to you by, I believe, Rav Chanoch Hanach Leibowitz, that's the Rosh Yeshiva of Chavetz Chaim in Queens. He says that usually a person is not taken to task when he is in pain. He's not given the same standards. He's not put in the same, Hashem gives him kind of slack. He realizes there's a handicap here, and he doesn't judge him the way he does when he's in good times. Ein adam nitpas b'soch saro. Person is not judged when he's in pain. However, with bitachon, the Bnei Israel wouldn't listen to him because they weren't thinking. They had no time to think. Paro didn't allow them to have time to think. They didn't take the time to think. They were too absorbed in their pain. And guess what? They didn't merit to go to Eretz Yisrael because of this. They didn't merit to go to Eretz Yisrael. This generation merited to leave Egypt, but they didn't merit Eretz Yisrael because of this, because they're taken to task. One thing you're not exempt from, even when you're going through hard times, is working on your emunah. Now, it doesn't mean you have to have emunah. I saw this Bitachon hotline. He says beautifully, he says it many times, people to know you're not going to be expected up in heaven. They're not going to take you to task. Why didn't you believe, like Rav Chaska Levenstein? They're going to ask you, why didn't you try? Like he said, if a person cries or if a person's scared, that's not what you're judged on. You're judged on, did you do any exercises today to work on your emunah bitachon? Did you do anything? Did you just laissez-faire and okay, I'll just chill, Or did you really work on your emunah bitachon? If you spent time working on it, then you're a Baal bitachon in Shemayim. That's all that counts. Is were you spending your time trying to get yourself closer to Hashem? Now, the thought is very important. Thought is very important. We can sometimes, if we don't employ thought, then sometimes we get very lost. We forget that there's this beautiful world around us. We hear the bad news. We think people are in control. But here's this thing that Rabbi Avigdor Miller brought down many years ago, and I was so taken by it that I'm reading it to you today. The Tiferes Yisrael writes in his commentary on the Mishnah and Tractate Sanhedrin that when you see a butterfly, you have to think it was once a caterpillar. A A caterpillar has as much hope of becoming a butterfly as I have of becoming a butterfly. It just winds up underneath the branch of a tree and starts spitting out its mouth a little string of mucus that immediately solidifies and becomes a thread. Miracle of miracles. It doesn't become a thread while it's inside the body of a caterpillar because it would get indigestion. It becomes a thread only after it spits it out. The chemical composition of it is such that as soon as it comes in contact with air, it immediately congeals into string. Isn't that a miracle? It's all plan and purpose. There's a laboratory inside that little worm that creates exactly the right kind of materials. And then it starts turning around and around for a long time and spins a funeral shroud for itself. Then it dies. If you would take a penknife and make a cross section, you would see nothing but putrefied material inside. It looks like nothing but a rotted caterpillar is inside. When the time comes, it opens up and out comes a gorgeous monarch butterfly with a big, beautiful yellow wings with black markings. And it's able to rise above the roofs now. Now you can't tread on it anymore. Monarch butterflies can fly across the ocean. Such a career was undreamed of by the poor, humble character. If you would argue with a caterpillar and try to convince it, it would ridicule you. The Tiferes Yisrael said, that gives us an analogy. If the body is put in the grave and it putrefies, then to believe that subsequently it will someday arise in a more glorious existence is certainly not easy. But we see that a person can believe in the revival of the dead just by seeing a caterpillar. We have so many things like that. There's a seed. You plant a seed. It totally shrivels, gets destroyed, and then the little green sprout comes up, and out comes a tree. And look at a seed. A seed doesn't have any markings that it's going to be an orange tree. I'll cut a seed in half. There's no green in it. There's no orange in it. There's no nothing. Miracle of miracles. We contemplate creation every day a little bit. Then we can realize that there's somebody else running this world besides the Chinese government and all the bad leaders of the world. We realize that somebody else is running this world and we don't have control and they don't either. Whether they know it or not, there is somebody that we can count on that's going to take care of us. And we have to work on that. Even the Egyptians were tested. The Egyptians were tested by the plague of Barad. The plague of hail, they were given an opportunity to bring all their cattle indoors because they were warned, hail's coming. And there were some Egyptians, and this was, remember, what was the seventh plague? I don't have time to count right now, but whatever it was, so many plagues they've endured already. They didn't get the drift. And many Egyptians, a good percentage of the population did not heed the warning, and they lost everything. Why did they do such a thing? Because people hang on to their egos. I don't want to let go of the Jews as my slaves. I don't want to believe. When you don't want to believe, you're willing to do foolish things because you're not thinking. You don't want to think. All of this, they didn't merit Eretz Yisrael. That's what the Sforno says. Because of this, the lack of thought, we have to think more. We have to think before we do things. First of all, when you think of something, you're putting Shem Shemayim in it. Everyday activities. We think, I'm doing this to help my family, to serve Hashem. I'm doing this. I'm making my life more idealistic. I'm making my life more altruistic. I'm making it more forever than just temporary, the way it seems right now. The Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh says something very interesting. It says, Ulai ki, oh no, I can't read my writing. Mitzad, Ulai ki mitzad shelo hayu b'nei Torah, lo shamu ki HaTorah marcheves libo shel adam. The reason perhaps why the Jews did not contemplate is because they didn't study Torah, and Torah expands a person's mind and soul, makes a person more relaxed and calm. So, this is before giving of the Torah. So that's also something that can always give us hope. The fact that we have the Torah to count on that will help us relax and remember there's a higher purpose, there's a higher calling, there's another world. This is a temporary world, this is a foolish world, a narrow world. Rav Pam Zatzal tells us there's so many things we can see precision in. If a person has a fever of 2 degrees, he's extremely ill. 2 degrees. What difference would it make in boiling a pot? 2 degrees. Maybe it would, maybe the boiling point, if you're right near the boiling point, I guess it does. But, what difference does it make? We find that the earth, the way it's put on the axis, the earth, if it's too close to the sun, everybody would burn. If it's too far from the sun, everybody would freeze. That it's this exact perfect purpose. It's unbelievable. Moshe Rabbeinu had tremendous emunah, but when Moshe Rabbeinu, but when his love for the Jewish people was so strong, it was being compared to the Akedas Yitzhak. It was being compared. He loved the Jewish people as much as Avram loved his son, and Avram didn't complain. Why did you? So Moshe obviously had more love for others than probably Avram Avinu. That's why he became the great leader of the Jewish people. However, he was taken to task. He's not going to go to Eretz Yisrael now because one of the reasons is because he questioned. He didn't have the emunah. If you're lacking the emunah on his level, I think if we would say that, what Moshe said, we'd be considered tzaddikim. Halavai, we should complain to Hashem like that about other people. And instead of most 99.999% of our complaints are about ourselves. And if we would only care about others the way we care about ourselves, we would be on a very high level. But yet he couldn't enter Eretz Yisrael because you can only get geula when you have emunah. That's why right before, when we have Shmona Esrei, we talk about the geula, how the Jewish people were taken out of Mitzrayim. Rav Scheinberg, now Rav Eloi does not hold like this, but Rav Scheinberg, the way he paskins is that it's more important to say, you don't say the last two paragraphs of Shema. If you're short on time, you say the first paragraph of Shema, you say Shmona Esrei, but you should say the paragraph, even a woman should say the paragraph between Shema and Shmona Esrei, because you have to be somech geula l'tefillah. Before you say Shmona Esrei, you should have, you inject yourself, all my forefathers, not one, they all left Egypt. That emunah, you need emunah for a better tefillah. Rav Scheinberg felt that's more important to say that than it is to say the last two paragraphs of Shema, whereas Rabbi Eloi says it's more important to say the whole Shema. But you have to go by your rabbi. But the importance is, it says in the Gemara that whoever, connects geula to tefillah is going to have a better davening. We mentioned that someone that personified this trait in our lifetimes was the holy Rabbi Kalman Krohn. He should rest in peace. Rabbi Kalman Krohn was described by Rav Nassim Bachvogel, his Rebbe. Rav Kalman Krohn lived in Lakewood, and he did a lot to help a lot of people learn Torah. He helped a lot of boys learn Torah. And he was like a little quiet Chafetz Chaim in his time. He's known as a good speaker. He's a brother of Pesach Krohn, Lavdil, brother of Pesach Krohn, but he was the one that actually was a huge tzaddik in many ways, a hidden tzaddik. So we were mentioning that one thing a real yeshiva guy usually doesn't do is they don't sign up for the army. And this is beyond the scope of this class. We're not going there. But a real Haredi yeshiva person, that they have the reasons, halachic reasons why they feel they're not allowed to be part of the army in Israel. However, Rav Kalman Krohn took an extra step. Rav Kalman Krohn, he was a person that every year he would contact the Israeli government, find out who passed away. I don't know if it was every year or every month, every week. I don't know how frequently. He would find out the names of the people that died in battle, and he would pay people to say Kaddish for them for a year. Now that's incredible. That's for 11 months, not a year. It's incredible if you think about it. Here, you don't believe with the theory of what they're doing, but the love of the Jewish people ate at his heart. Rav Nassim Bachvogel, his Rebbe, said that the only two people he ever met in his life that had such love of the Jewish people was Rav Baruch Ber Leibowitz and Rav Kalman Krohn. Really quite a comparison for Rav Kalman Krohn. What a holy man. Now, so I think we've answered all our questions basically of your mission in life and how much emunah has to be employed, and the kal v'chomer, that if the Jewish people are not thinking about me, then how could Paro think about me? The Jewish people have something of thought within their psyche, and they could have come to this thought. Paro is not thinking at all about me. Paro wants to think about himself. He doesn't want to think about his mission in life at all. But we have to employ thought. Thought is the way that we're going to get somewhere in our life. That's what's going to help us with, and we have to work in emunah b'tachon. It doesn't come by nature. It doesn't come naturally. Another thing, we're going through such times now that every time I get a glimpse of what's going on in the news, I regret it, that I hear something from somebody, because it's so frightening, what the people are telling us, that this and that, and it just looks like everything's so dangerous. No matter what you do, it's dangerous. And everything looks like it's, there's this problems, huge problems, but we think we know there's some kind of major world shakeup going on right now as we speak. But the best times in life sometimes are those under pressure, to be like our avos. The Tosfos, the Bali Tosfos was written during the Crusades. They said their prime composition was during the actual crusade times when people were being butchered. lo aleinu. And that this is when we have to realize there's no other place to turn but Hashem. We have to take these times. These times are valuable. We can really use these times as times for self-development. We can't be maybe like a chevrati type of person now. We can't be a social butterfly, but we can build up the inner world to be a beautiful butterfly. We can build up our inner worlds, our connection to Hashem, our connection with what are we in this world for. Our davening could be of a higher quality. We have to not waste our time. We have to realize that time means a mission. So that means, what's my mission? Your mission. Now, this is huge. Can you say about yourself that every minute of your life was used for the right purpose? Now, as women, we're not taken to task like men. Men have a question of bittul Torah, and women need time. We need relaxation times. We need times to unwind, or we're going to be nervous wrecks, because it isn't an easy job to be a woman, and many times. However, all that being said, we have to justify our time on earth. They say a story about Rav Avram Chaim Levine, Zechron Levracha, the Rosh Yeshiva of Telz, Chicago. And he said, they used to see him running. Wherever he went, he was running. And they asked him, why are you running? He says, I want you to know, my student, he told his Talmud. He said, I want you to know the biggest chil Hashem is wasting your time. Time is life. That means you don't believe that God gave you a purpose. There is a purpose. You don't have to know your mission. And it's not like a simple heading. It's not like you think God is so simplistic that he says your mission is like a one-word title. There's many missions at different times. The mission is to keep the faith under all costs, to do what's necessary under all costs, to be an Eved Hashem under all costs. That's what we're supposed to do. And if we get too distracted with all the stupidity going on in the world, we don't know what life is going to be like in the future. Let's maximize our time while we still have, before Mashiach comes, while we still have a major Yetzer Hara. Let's maximize it, defeat the forces of evil within ourselves. All these people talk about Satan and all that. That's very good on a Kabbalistic level. Let's talk about the Satan that's inside. Let's defeat the Satan that's being challenged and threatened all the time. I mentioned this before, and I just think it was unbelievable. I was just reading the biography of Rav Scheinberg Zatzal, and how he particularly wanted to use ivory soap to wash his hands because it lathered the quickest. He didn't want to waste time washing his hands. Rav Elchanan Wasserman didn't want to have tie shoes because he didn't want to have time to tie up his shoes. He had better things to do with his life. We find that Rav Scheinberg also, the 10 seconds when he would lead the Amud for Kedusha, what Rav Scheinberg would do would be the 10 seconds in between the response, while everybody's responding to Kedusha, he would have a sefer ready and open and use it. 10 seconds, he felt. I don't know, for me, I would say 10 seconds, I need to chill out. I need to relax for 10 seconds. Let me compose my thoughts. He was can you imagine if a person could really be on that level to every 10 seconds we're counting? That's these are why people are tzaddikim, that every time was cherished. They saw it as a gift from God and something they had to use and not abuse. So let's look at this time now. It's not like just because the world has shut us off, Hashem has not shut us off. We have things to do. We have a mission to accomplish, and that mission is through faith. And that's why I titled this Faith and Mission. And I thank you for listening. And I thank for the greatest administrator in the universe for administrating this. And I thank the Rebbeinu Shalom for allowing me to say this. And let's take these lessons and internalize them. Thank you very much. Chazak v'amatz.
I feel like if you would say it a third time, it would be